At Cape 3 Point, south of McMaster's Beach early this afternoon, two climbers, a 15-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl, became stranded halfway down a sheer cliff face. Bystanders raised the alarm and police and volunteer rescue units from the Central Coast were called in. Two police officers abseiled down to the stranded pair of climbers and carried them to safety to the bottom of the cliff. They were taken to waiting ambulance officers but were uninjured in the ordeal. Meantime, at Swansea this afternoon, traffic heading south along the Pacific Highway was banked up several kilometres as thousands of people headed home from their annual holidays. Despite the hold-ups, police report no other major problems on the region's roads.
Grateful appreciation.
A small crowd gathered at Redhead Beach today for the official launch of this new timber surf boat. The boat was given a traditional champagne christening before it was pushed out by its crew to handle its first waves. The boat was built by the state's leading surfboat builder Ray Burton from the Central Coast and is equipped with the latest aluminium shafted oars. Club president Chris Conrick said he hopes the new boat will help the club to maintain its competitive edge.
It's a psychological edge for a start, and besides that, the lightness of the boat helps, and you know, this should make our crews extremely competitive. They are extremely competitive now. They won at both crews won at Caves Carnival. That was the last start, and this should make them even more competitive.
And the club certainly did not waste any time before pushing the boat straight into competition. After the launching, the crew was taking the boat to Ocean Beach on the Central Coast for its first surf carnival.
Tomago Aluminium was granted permission just before Christmas to start burying toxic waste on the Wallaroo site. The waste is subject to a stringent state government chemical control order which limits toxins to a maximum level of 100 times the level found in drinking water. According to Rod Moffat from the Wallaroo Environmental Group, a chemical analysis of the waste by the State Pollution Control Commission shows that the level of mercury exceeds the limit. Mr Moffat said last night that mercury levels are 200 times that in drinking water, twice the government limit. The claims fly in the face of criticisms of the Wallaroo Group by the Director of the State Pollution Control Commission, Peter Standen. Mr Standen wrote in a letter last week that all claims by the Wallaroo Group had been investigated and found to be without substance. This is how the obelisk looked after it was hit by lightning in a violent thunderstorm just before 4 yesterday afternoon. A lightning bolt caused cracks through the top 2 metres of the spire and scattered bricks and masonry over a large area. Resident Lionel Doohan was nearby when the lightning hit.
I ran out to pick things up to take them in out of the rain, and I heard the crack of thunder, and then a shockwave pushed me onto the ground, and I just ran inside more or less in terror.
Waterboard Chairman Alan McLaughlin has promised that the obelisk will be restored. The obelisk has a checkered history. It sits atop Newcastle's oldest reservoir and marks the site of the city's first windmill built in the 1820s. The windmill was used as a navigational aid by sailors, and when it was pulled down in 1847 there was a public outcry. In 1850 the obelisk was erected in its place. In June last year the reservoir was damaged by an explosion caused by leaking gas, but the obelisk survived undamaged.
Boats from Queensland, Victoria, South Australia, the 3 Etchells fleets from Sydney and the Lake Macquarie fleet are competing in this week's series of races. The Etchells 22 was designed in 1965 for Olympic competition and quickly became a popular boat, particularly in the USA. Strict rules govern the design of the yachts, making the individual skills of skipper and crew the major factor in determining which boat comes out on top. The E-22s are also used as training yachts for crews of the America's Cup 12 metres. In fact, Task Force skippers Ian Murray and Peter Gilmore sailed together in 1984 to take out the World E-22 Championships. Lake Macquarie's fleet was formed 4 years ago and includes boats from both Belmont and Toronto. This is the first time the Australian Championships have been sailed inshore, and today's fresh northerly breeze proved ideal for the yachts in the opening race.
Team.
The Sports Star finalists were announced at a ceremony in the NBN boardroom last night. Sports commentator Lee Morn handed out trophies to the 40 quarter-finalists and then announced the 13 which judges considered to be the most outstanding performers of 1986. They were water skier Peter Wellham, cricketer Bob Holland, shooter Don Brooks, Kim Hicks the triathlete, CU for badminton, cricketer Sally Griffiths, Greg Heyman for weightlifting, archer Matthew Betchley, Brett Austin for trampolining, water skier Debbie Pugh, jockey Robert Thompson, Mark Sainsbury for surfing, and Glenn Coulton and Grant Schultz for sailing flying 15s. The award will be presented during a live telecast on the 17th of this month. Amongst the better-known chances for the award is weightlifter Greg Heyman, who won gold in the Commonwealth Games and came 9th in the world titles.
I've had several high points, possibly reaching elite grade, which is a very high standard. It's the highest we've got in Australia. Apparently, at the moment, there's only about 10 that are elite grade in all of the 10 divisions. So I was happy there. The Commonwealth Games gold medalist was another highlight. 9th place in the World Championships, which was my best ever performance internationally. So really, it's hard to pick just one.
Jockey Robert Thompson is another strong chance after riding an amazing 172 winners last year and being picked to represent Australia in Asia.
My highlight in the last 12 months was most definitely having a ride in this year's Melbourne Cup. But also, and it was a horse trained at, from Maitland. A couple of weeks prior to that, we won the 50,000 Moonee Valley Cup, so that was the biggest race in the last 12 months I won. But riding in a Melbourne Cup, that was a highlight of the last 12 months.
The steam bath conditions of the past few days have enticed people to the beach in their droves, a frustrating exercise when many popular spots are closed for swimming due to dangerous surf and big Christmas tides. While some people become beach Bedouins as they search for a safer area, the temptation is to ignore the warning signs. According to the Surf Lifesaving Association, this can lead to tragedy.
Visitors here, a lot from the country, possibly it's their first time to the beaches, and you've got to be very, very wary of those people. And the beach inspectors and the surf club members have a lot of difficulties at the moment trying to keep them in within the red and yellow flags. As you see, most of our beaches around here at the moment, especially one here at Merriweather, where there's
Who pose the biggest problems on the beaches in this area?
The most problems, I'd say, in most of our beaches around here is the surfboard rider that doesn't want to come to the rules and regulations. There are areas for the surfboard riders to keep away from the patrol beaches where the swimmers swim between the red and yellow flags. If they obey the rules and kept outside those areas, especially at Newcastle Beach where they've got 2/3 of the beach for themselves, but they do like to go up where the crowd are, possibly where the best waves are.
But on a day like today, with Merriweather Beach closed, one swimmer at least was grateful for the presence of a quick-thinking board rider. Mr Jackson says he would like surf lifesavers to have more power over swimmers and board riders.
I'd like to see them with a little bit more power than what they actually have got now. The only powers I just said that they can report the people, and also they can confiscate surfboards, but with the way that they have them tied onto their leg, they're pretty hard to get their boards from them.
Do you think it's fair that some swimmers...
This moving platform is the invention of a woman who found she could no longer, without aid, get in or out of her car. She hopes to now market the device and show others with similar disabilities that they needn't be housebound.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
I always thought the plays were meant to be entertaining, but what is entertaining about sarcasm and violence? And I always thought that the intention of poets was to achieve pure beauty. But what is beautiful about whipping and corpses?
The Newcastle Repertory Theatre's latest production has this lengthy title, The Persecution and Assassination of Murat, as performed by the inmates of the Asylum of Charenton, under the direction of the Marquis de Sade. In the theatre world, it's better known as Murat Sade. Written by German playwright Peter Weiss, it's become a classic of modern theatre in the absurdist style. For the Repertory Club, it's been a major challenge. The cast of 30 have all been trained by doctors and psychiatrists to accurately imitate asylum inmates. Director Michael Blacksland says the play is something very different for the club.
Rep's built up a very large audience over the 30 years or so we've been in Newcastle, and we've allowed the last few years a 2-week alternative season for plays that would be, say, a bit more difficult for our normal audiences, or plays that give our actors a chance to do something a little out of the ordinary. This one, Murat Sade, is considered one of the major German works of the late 20th century, and involves a lot of institutional acting. They all play mad people, so it gives them a chance to try something a bit different and advance themselves. I suppose that's one reason the club does it, for the experience for the actors.
The question of expanding the services at the regional fruit and vegetable markets was first raised in 1983. The issue resurfaced last year when Coles decided to no longer buy its supermarket produce from the markets. That represented a sizable loss in income for the Sandgate operation. As a result, the proposal to establish a Paddy's market was again suggested to generate that lost revenue. Secretary-Manager of the Chamber of Fruit and Vegetable Industries, Peter Holmes, says the proposal is now being considered by the Newcastle City Council, and already the response has been favourable.
We want to sell goods other than fruit and vegetable. At the moment, the market isn't fully utilised. For example, on Saturday, there's nobody there at all. We'd like to take advantage of that. Plus, we'd like to get Newcastle people coming back to Newcastle. At the moment, you're probably aware that there are busloads of people going down to Sydney, taking money out of Newcastle. We have some Paddy's market concepts operating in Newcastle at the moment, but a majority of these are run by people that, again, are from Sydney, so the money isn't staying in Newcastle.
And the Chamber also plans to sell cut flowers on a wholesale basis, so florists won't have to travel outside the region to buy their stock.
Well, what happens now in Newcastle, there is only one registered wholesale flowers in the Yellow Pages. We've spoken to a number of retailers. They're going down to Sydney to buy cut flowers. This is again money that's leaving Newcastle. We have people in Newcastle that are selling cut flowers, but they're having to go around to the 50-odd retailers to sell them. What we would like to do is have one central market in Newcastle where people can buy cut flowers.
Police
Police say at around 1:40 this morning in Kadaga Road, Gateshead West, a young man broke into a bedroom where two girls aged 16 and 6 were sleeping. The 16-year-old girl woke to see him tampering with the clothes the 6-year-old was wearing. The intruder then fled carrying a piece of wood and was confronted by another girl at the front gate before he made his escape. Police say there appear to be links between this incident and the abduction and sexual assault of a 2-year-old girl at Charlestown before Christmas. They're being very hushed about details of last night's intrusion, but it's believed they have strong leads. Charlestown detectives have a good description of the intruder, and he is now a prime suspect in the abduction case. The man is described as 18 to 20 years old, more than 180 centimetres or 6 feet tall, medium build, dark complexion and scruffy dark shoulder-length hair. He was wearing blue jeans and a pale t-shirt.
Hello again, Ray Deneen for NBN News. Union delegates representing the 380 employees of the Newcastle State Dockyard met today to hear officially of the Oakes report, the government inquiry which recommends sweeping changes to the way the dockyard is managed and operated, including the reduction of the workforce there by more than half. Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The two girls lay sleeping in double bunks in the bedroom of a house in Kadaga Road, Gateshead West. Police say the 16-year-old woke around 1:40 to see a man bending over her young niece. He was armed with what appeared to be a length of timber.
We'd only got home from holidays a couple of hours earlier. When I woke up, I was fairly disorientated, and seeing someone standing there and someone that wasn't familiar to me, I was just really, really shocked. I was very scared that he was going to hurt myself and my niece, and I was just very, very scared for her.
Dominique screamed for her mother and the man fled. Another woman from the house, a 20-year-old aunt of the little girl, chased after him, but he escaped. Police say there is no evidence that this intruder is the same man who abducted and sexually assaulted a 2-year-old Charlestown girl last month. But they say there are similarities between the two incidents.
We've got two young children that have... One was definitely the subject of the offence. It appears the second one could have been the subject of an offence. I've got to make it very clear that the second child has not been injured in any way whatsoever, but the possibilities were there.
Police say they have a good description of the Gateshead intruder. He is 18 to 20 years old, 182 centimetres or 6 feet tall, of medium build and dark complexion. The man fell heavily in the roadway as he escaped, and it's believed he may have abrasions on the right side of his face and right arm. For the alert young woman whose quick thinking saved the day, the incident sounds a warning to the families of young children.
You should never ever leave your children alone. You should always check upon them. Even when your house is alight and there's a lot of people in the house, you should always go and check on them all night, because anybody can get to them. And your children are the most important things in the world.
Hello, I'm Anna Manzoni. A 3-kilometre walk might not sound very far for most people, but next week a young Swansea headsman is going to do that walk for charity underwater.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Aglo Engineering's interest comes at a crucial time for the troubled dockyard. The recommendations made last week in the controversial Oakes report are still the subject of lengthy talks between management and unions. Some of the report's recommendations include reducing the yard's workforce and eliminating restrictive work practices. As far as Aglo is concerned, institutions like the State Dockyard should be in the hands of private enterprise. But the emergence of Aglo Engineering in the State Dockyard debate has further ramifications for Newcastle's shipbuilding future. As this article in today's Financial Review shows, the debate over which state should win the Navy's $2.6 billion submarine contract is far from over. Head of the South Australian Submarine Task Force, Jim Duncan, says the major component of the subs will be built in Adelaide, with up to 50% of the remaining work going to New South Wales and Victoria. So where does that leave Newcastle and the State Dockyard? According to Jim Duncan, if local engineering firms are geared up to manufacture major components for the subs and the State Dockyard proves its commercial viability, Newcastle would be in a strong position to win the Navy's new patrol frigate contract. That's a contract Carrington Slipway's General Manager, Don Laverick, has been chasing since the mid-70s and could establish Newcastle as Australia's major shipbuilding centre. Defence Minister Kim Beazley is expected to make an announcement on that contract for the 8 surface vessels in 2 days' time. Even if the submarines aren't assembled in Newcastle, the revamping of the State Dockyard by either private enterprise or the state government could greatly contribute to Newcastle's growth as a shipbuilding centre.